Welcome to Rejuvenate Church Broadcast. We exist to create an environment where people can engage the hope of Jesus Christ, connecting people to their dreams and purpose in life, teaching transformational kingdom principles that allow that purpose to be lived out. Visit us on the web at www.rejuvenatechurch.com. You may also connect with us via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Stay tuned at the close of today's message for more information about Rejuvenate. Let's join Pastor Jason Wilson now for today's message.
In verse 2 of Exodus 2, and it says, "And a man of the house of Levi went and took as a wife of the daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of the bulrushes for him, daubed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sisters stood afar off to know what would be done to him. And then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid girl to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him and said, 'This is one of the Hebrews' children.' And then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, 'Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?' And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, 'Go.' So the maiden went and called the child's mother. And then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, 'Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages.' And so the woman took the child and nursed him, and the child grew. And she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, saying, 'Because I drew him out of the water.'" Father, thank you for your word. God, it is powerful. God, I pray that I do not get in the way of your word. God, I pray, Father, that I do not limit your word. I pray your anointing, Father, rest on me, God. Father, that I may decrease, that you may increase, Father. I pray, God, that your word, Father, would flow through me, Father, as an oracle from heaven. It would pierce the hearts and the minds of people, open their lives. May your Holy Spirit move up and down the aisles and through every chair, God, to literally liberate the minds and the hearts of people, Father, that they will not walk out the same way they walked in. May they be changed, Father, by the power of your truth in Jesus. The word has life to it. And so I'm believing that God is going to work in your life. I like this passage, and God sent me here and really it's kind of pulled a little bit more out of it with me than what I had originally had in my initial thinking. We're in a place in this moment that we see this young man named Moses, when Jochebed gives birth to Moses, that God's people, the Israelites, had been in captivity for many, many, many years. Now, what we tend to always think is that they were in complete slavery for the 400 plus years that they were in Egypt. That's really not necessarily the case. They weren't in complete bondage and slavery until the new king took over, and you'll see that here in just a minute when we flip back to Exodus. Because God had taken a man named Joseph and had given Joseph access and had given him favor into the king of Egypt's home, and had raised Joseph up as a Hebrew man, but had brought him up and given him favor with the king of Egypt, and he reigned in the king's house as the governor of all the land, and he literally was the one that was responsible for distributing all the wealth throughout the land. God had taken Joseph's brothers, who had once sent him into exile and had turned their back on him, and they restored a relationship, and God had taken Joseph's whole family and literally brought them to Egypt, and had blessed them in a time of famine, in a time of drought. They had blessed, God had blessed Joseph's family in Egypt, and they had been provided for. And so that's how you begin to see the Israelites find their way into the Egyptian area and the Egyptian culture. Is not that they were brought there to be cursed and slain and accused, but God brought them there to bless them. God brought them into the land of the Egyptians to grow them and to multiply them. And the reality is that if you flip back in Exodus chapter 1, you'll see that they really begin to outnumber the Egyptians in their own land. That God had brought his people, his chosen people, into a land to establish them, to do a work through them, and he prospered them in the land of the foreigners. Literally had brought them in as foreigners, and had blessed them in the land as aliens, and had covered them and favored them to where they began to outnumber and outgrow the Egyptians. And then when the old king died that had given favor to Joseph, and the new king came in, he began to get afraid. All right. Now, I don't know if you catch this for a minute, but God had brought his people into a land to literally reshape and change the land. Now, here's the thing. The Egyptians were blessed because God's people were in their land. You follow me? God had literally he said, listen, I'm going to take somebody that has been an enemy to my people, and I'm going to bless them because they have given access to my people. He carried them out of their own land, said, I want to expand my territory. I'm going to expand God's chosen territory. I'm going to expand the kingdom. And so in order for me to expand the kingdom, we're going to grow territory. We're just going to multiply God's influence. We're going to multiply God's authority. And so he took Joseph. It started with one. You follow me? That ought to inspire you a little bit. That a change of a whole nation was inspired by one. God gave Joseph favor when he had nobody else around him. All right, well, even when he was locked into a place of slavery, God elevated him and promoted him because he was committed to the king. He was committed to the king, to the King of Kings. And he began to shape a nation and change a nation because God's presence was in Joseph, and Joseph was in the land of the Egyptians. God blessed Egypt. All right, and so the people of God had begun to grow and begin to multiply. God had sent them there to grow the kingdom and to literally raise up a new area and a new land, a new territory for God's people. And because this new king came in, he became afraid of what was taking place. He became afraid of what he was seeing happening with the Israelites around him. He's like, man, this is my land. This is our land. This is the place that we have inhabited. This should be ours. And yet these other people are beginning to outnumber us. They're growing and they're taking over. And we're seeing them blessed in numerous ways. And we're seeing them prosper in crazy ways. They're prospering in our own land. And God said, well, that's a strategy by me to grow my kingdom. They get offended and frustrated by this. Let me hit this again. I'm sorry. They get offended and frustrated by this, and it says, then all of a sudden after the king died, then you have this man Joseph, and he dies, and all his brothers and all that generation. And so we see a shift that begins to happen within the Egyptian land. And it says, but the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly. They multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. The land of the Egyptians was filled with God's people. Now let me just give you a little sidebar here. There is not an area or a territory, literally, that we occupy in Anderson, in your home, in your job, in your business, in your family, in your university, in your school systems, wherever it may be. There's not an area that God does not intend to occupy and that God does not intend to bless. Right. God has literally sent people there. He has birthed people, and if God is going to get things done on the earth, it's going to happen through people. He has sent people to specific and strategic areas in order to conquer new territory for the kingdom of God. Yeah. God desires the place where you reside and rest each day to grow and be occupied by Him. And so He has sent you there. He has sent others around you there in order to take over that territory. And even though there may be a different spirit that lives there that does not bother God, God says my spirit will overpower anything. And if I can get my spirit in you and get you in that land, I can shake that area. So there's not a place that you have access to that God does not intend to occupy for the kingdom. You follow me? And so here's the thing is that Anderson, if you live in Anderson, if you live in Anderson County, it may be frustrating to you. How many of you, I'm just curious, how many of you guys have ever heard somebody say something negative about Anderson? How many of you have ever been frustrated just about living in Anderson? You follow me right now? But the truth about this thing is that God built Anderson, and then God built people and put them in Anderson because He desired for Anderson to function by the kingdom. That's right. This is not a desolate and a destitute place. It's not a place of brokenness. It's not a place of failure. It looks that way. It looks heavily oppressed. It looks heavily racist. It looks heavily impoverished, but it is God's land, and God has sent people here to occupy this territory because He desires to reign in this place. Amen. All right? He has sent you here in order to shape it so that He can reign in this place. But we have this picture that has been taken over by the Egyptians. It's covered by this spirit of man, by the spirit of the Egyptians. And we see this, we see these folks die off and see this new king come to pass. And he's like, if I'm going to change the scope of this territory, then I've got to find a way to begin to affect the people that God has sent. I got to find a way to begin to get into the hearts and the minds of the people that God has sent, because the only way that we can overcome them is that we change the way they see things. We change the way they view things. We change their processes. We change their thoughts. We change their principles. We change their attitudes. Right now they believe in themselves. Right now they feel like they're a mighty force. Right now they feel like they can conquer anything and do anything. And if I'm going to find a way to get myself and to get our people back into this place to take over, I've got to find a way into their minds. I got to find a way to begin to challenge their thinking. They're too big for me. They're too strong for me. They've got more authority than I've got. They've got more power than I got. They got more influence than I have. They're increased and they're exceedingly abundant, greater than any of me and my people. I've got to find a way to shift this land. And so I'm going to begin to use them against himself. Jesus. Now watch. She says, now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Now follow me here. It says he did not know Joseph. And he did not know Joseph. He did not know the Spirit of God. And he said to his people, look, the people of children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Let me tell you something this morning. Every enemy that is advanced against you knows that you're more powerful than he is.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Every enemy, every obstacle that stands before you this morning, every voice that has ever been adverse to your life knows that you are more powerful than it is. Amen. It knows that. It says, I know that they are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply. And it happened in the event of war that they also join with our enemies and fight against us and go up out of the land. And therefore, now this is key right here. It says, therefore they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens. Wow. Now listen, when you begin to get into the train, I'm just going to teach y'all this morning. I ain't going to try to get too preachy. I'm just going to teach y'all. I'm going to keep it nice and calm and Mother's Day like, just flowers and roses and petals. Okay? It says, therefore they set taskmasters over them. Taskmasters. When you begin to go into the translation of the language of taskmasters, what it literally means is forced labor chiefs. Forced labor chiefs. And then it goes on further and says, all right, so they took forced labor chiefs over them. Now listen, help me God. Man was never given authority over man. When you get man operating in authority over man, you have something called oppression. Are you following me? Oppression is literally the spirit of man being in authority over man. And God never gave you a spirit to hold over man. God gave you man to connect with man, to build a relationship with man in order that you guys might grow the kingdom together, but he never gave you authority over another man. That's why a man can't look at his wife and talk to her and say, well, the Bible says to submit to me. Now, it literally means submitting to the spiritual authority in me, but you are my side. You are my equal. You are my partner. You are my team. I don't have power over you to abuse you. I don't have power over you to talk down to you. I don't have power to degrade you. I don't have power to do anything to cause you to look at me and be in fear of me, because you are my partner in this thing. So man was never given a power over a man. When you get somebody that begins to operate in that concept, and you get what we call oppression. Oppression is not this attack of the devil. It's not. That's not what it is. Oppression is man over man. Now, the enemy may literally deposit his spirit into somebody that drives them, and they have the spirit of man in them that causes them to degrade people and put down people and lord over people. And that's where we get oppression from, is man over man. And so you see that's what he began to do. He said, I'm going to take man that never had authority over another man, and I'm going to begin to force them into a labor situation. I'm going to begin to force them into a situation that says we're going to afflict them with their burdens. Now watch, afflict them means that they place them in bondage to a place that it was such a bondage that it was used to humiliate them. That's what this translation here says. It says, now I got forced labor chiefs that are driving people to humiliation. Just let that set in for a minute. How many of you been humiliated before? Come on now. How many of you really been humiliated before? You've been embarrassed. How does it make you feel? How does it make you feel about yourself? Does it make you ashamed of who you are? Does it make you ashamed to even look at yourself in the mirror? Does it make you ashamed to face those around you? See, when you're in a place of humiliation, you don't want to be around anybody. You feel less than anything. You feel like you don't have any power of yourself. You don't believe in yourself. You don't trust in yourself. God wants to use you, but you don't even believe in the God in you. You don't believe in your surroundings, and all you want to do is retreat to a place that you can literally isolate yourself from people, that drives you into now from oppression to depression. And when you get into a place of oppression to depression, you're willing to listen to what anybody says, and you'll do whatever they tell you to do, because you're subject to their authority at that point, because you do not believe you have anything in you. Forced into a situation of oppression, that they're working now to humiliate those that were in power and authority. Humiliate God's people. See, this is exactly where, if you go back into the creation of things and you get back to Adam and Eve, that's exactly the way the spirit of the enemy works, is he's trying to find a way to humiliate people because he wants to humiliate God.
Yes. That's good. That's good.
He was seeking God's authority and got rejected, which humiliated him. Are you following me? And so now he says, I'm trying to turn the tables on this thing, and I've got to find a way to humiliate God. And so in order for me to humiliate God, I'm going to take the image of God and find ways to humiliate it. If I can humiliate the image of God, I can literally lessen the God that is inside of them and have control and authority over their life. I don't have authority over their life, and I know that, but if I can embarrass them, it gives me the key.
Amen.
Come on now. I'm talking to you right now. And so they drove them to a place of forced labor that he humiliated them and placed them in bondage of their humiliation. So that the burden became heavy. And out of that, they operated in oppression. They built for Egypt what Egypt wanted and not for God what God wanted. Now think about this for a minute, man. I would dare say that there are so many of you in here, because I believe it's this way for so many of the church. There are so many of you in here that know that there is something down inside of you that's to be used for the kingdom of God. But you have faced humiliation in your life. You have faced degradation in your life. You have faced literally being abused. You have faced being tormented. You have faced being accused. And people have embarrassed you. They've walked out on you. They've turned their back on you. You've had situations in your life over and over and over and over again that even though the power and the authority lives inside of you, the enemy has used people and circumstances to humiliate you, that you believe less of yourself than what God sees.
Come on.
When you begin to have this picture of self, when you begin to have this picture of self, of embarrassment and shame. Now somebody just talk to me for a minute. When you can't get up in the morning because you're ashamed of who you are, there ain't nothing effective coming out of your life.
Right.
The enemy didn't even have to get up with you. Literally, you follow me? He began to work situations in your life to place you into a place of oppression that he can literally use you against yourself. And because you have power inside of you, he can take the power that's inside of you and literally eliminate the thought process or the principles of God that are in your mind and literally begin to have you thinking differently about yourself. But the power inside of you tells you to sit down, shut up, sleep, don't get up, don't put yourself around anybody, don't give yourself to anything. There ain't no God in you, ain't nothing in you. You ain't worth it. You might as well just stay where you're at.
Let's go.
Rendering you to a place of being so ineffective that the enemy doesn't even have to create obstacles in your life because you build them for yourself.
God.
So he has gone through your life and set up taskmasters, forcing you into situations that have embarrassed you, forcing you into situations that you're ashamed about, forcing you into situations that literally have humiliated you to where you can no longer see the picture of God inside of you. And when that happens, man, let me show you. When you're not getting up and making progress for God, you can't get in your mind that if I just sit here today and do nothing, then I'm okay. If I just sit here today, ain't nobody gonna notice nothing. Nobody's gonna think nothing. Nobody's gonna believe in it. I'll be okay. I ain't hurting nobody. If you're not making progress for God, you're making progress for the enemy. So every time you allow the enemy to keep you in a bed another day because you don't feel like getting up and looking yourself in the mirror, you're building his kingdom. I ain't afraid to call it out. I'm just telling you. Every time you're not willing to take another step to fight back, you're building this thing for him. Subjecting yourself to forced labor, humiliation, embarrassment, because he's got a strategy against you. He sees that God has sent you to a land that you have power and authority over. He sees the mission that God has sent you on. The reality is, y'all got to follow me. If the enemy did not believe you couldn't accomplish what God sent you to accomplish, he wouldn't work so hard to get in your head.
That's right. Amen. Amen.
So he believes in what God has sent you to do more than you do. If he didn't believe that there was a strategy of your life by the kingdom and that you literally had the authority to carry it out, he would not even work on you. He wouldn't work on creating forced labor in your life and trying to bring you to a place of subjection to oppression and depression and humiliation. He'd leave you the heck alone.
That's it.
That's what he'd do. But he knows there's something inside of you that can literally change this place. If you don't like Anderson, guess what? God sent you to change it.
Hallelujah.
And if it can start in a whole nation with one man, what do you think it can happen in this county if you begin to see the fire of God that lives inside of your life? If you begin to see the authority that God has put inside of you, if you begin to realize the dreams that he's deposited in you, it changes everything around you. We get to a place that we think it's going to change overnight. It ain't going to change overnight. It took Joseph years to reshape Egypt for the kingdom of God. Years to gain influence. He went through all of heaven and hell to make it happen. It took him years to change this place, but he did not quit.
Hallelujah.
He believed in himself, even in the middle of being embarrassed in a pit somewhere, even in being embarrassed in the middle of a prison, even being accused of rape by a woman. He still believed in what God put inside of him, and he was not going to subject his mind to oppression. But he died off, and that spirit left with him. And now we got the masses of people who are literally blessed and have authority and have power and have influence that have lost the presence of God in their own life and in their mind and have been subjected to humiliation, that are now building the kingdom of Egypt instead of the kingdom of heaven. Sitting there to change, man, sitting there to change the world, working for the enemy. He carries them to a place of humiliation and just begins to wear them out, man. Changes the way they see themselves. They literally went from blessed to oppressed overnight, it seemed like. If y'all ever feel like, man, everything was going right and all of a sudden, just in a moment, everything just goes to crap?
Yes. Yes.
Are you feeling me? Yeah. Did God change? Come on, I got two no's. Somebody's got to believe in God more than that. Did God change in the middle of that? No. What changed was your thinking. Your situation changed your thinking. Because you couldn't see God in a moment, but you could see your situation. It changed your thinking. Subjected you to a place of humiliation in your mind or to frustration in your mind that you quit trusting the God that was in you. You got to trust that God is in you regardless of what you see, how you feel, what's going on, what's moving, what ain't moving, what's working, what ain't working. You got to trust that there's something inside of you that's more powerful than what this world can handle.
Hallelujah.
You've got to trust that and believe in that. You've got to trust that and believe in that. Set taskmasters to humiliate them. They built Pharaoh supply cities. Literally gave them influence. And then something happened that was pretty incredible to me. Let me show you this one verse. We're going to skip down to verse 22. It says, so Pharaoh during that time set taskmasters over them to embarrass them, to drive them into a place of forced labor, that they were oppressed, that they were humiliated, that they subjected themselves to their commands rather than the commands of God. And then it says, not only am I going to do that, but while I've got them in a place of vulnerability, he says, take every son who is born and you shall cast it into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. Now follow me, because I'm going to try to break this down for just a minute. He says, take every son that is born and cast him into the river. Now, the male, the son, what represents authority, and it represents the seed. Male always represents authority or a seed. Are you following me? If you're going to have children being born, listen, you got to have a place of incubation and somebody that can give it birth, but it won't happen unless you impregnate it with a seed. And so the seed is necessary for expansion and for growth. You've got to have the seed. The male represents the seed. So here's the thing, is that God has given you life, and he said, I shaped you, I formed you, and I knew you. I knew you in your mama's womb, and I had an idea for your life long before you ever had thinking in your brain, and I put a seed inside of you. And the only reason that you're drawing breath today is because that seed has life. Because that seed has me.
Hallelujah.
Are you following me? He says the only reason that you woke up this morning because there's a seed inside of you. There's a seed. There's a seed that this world is it's meant for. It's meant to shape the place around you. I've sent you, I've strategized you to the very street you live on, to the very job that you go to the very people I've put around. I've sent you there because they need the seed that is inside of you, because that seed has life and power.
Hallelujah.
Now follow me. He says, I've got this seed inside of you. All right? I'm giving you a baby. I'm giving you something that can bring life. I'm giving you my power and my authority. But when you get to a place that you do not believe any longer in who you are, and you subject yourself to the humiliation of the spirit of man, then literally it doesn't make a difference what's inside of you. If you don't believe it's inside of you, you'll allow it to drown away.
That's right.
You'll give it over to the river. You'll take that baby that God has put inside of you, and regardless of what God sees, you won't believe in it anymore. And here's the thing, is that we can look and know we can never silence the voice of God in our life. And we can be in the middle of a place of brokenness and frustration and destitute and oppressed and depressed. And the reality is that seed, God's still talking to us about that seed. I've still got this for you, Jason. I've preserved this seed that's inside of you. And because you don't have the right perspective about yourself, you'll see what God is showing you, and it will drive you to a place of deeper depression because you do not think that you have the capacity to give birth to it. I'm talking to you this morning. And so you'll abort what God has put in you simply out of humiliation. You'll throw the baby in the river. Life just begins to drown what God is trying to birth. See, the enemy don't have power over you, so he can't stop you dead in your tracks. But he can bring people, and he can bring circumstances, and he can bring obstacles, and he can bring frustrations that after you hit life long enough, if you don't have a firm foundation in who you are, you'll give up on what God has put in you and just allow the waters of life to drown you out.
Come on.
Suffocate that thing that God has put inside of you. Take the son and throw him in the river. Take the son and throw him in the river. So many people, man, so many people have drowned the seeds that God's put inside of them. Yes. Every day, wake up, do the same job, go the same routine, eat breakfast at the same place, go to lunch with the same people, eat the same dinner. On Monday we eating this, on Tuesday we eating this, on Wednesday eating this, and you just get caught up in the monotony of nothing. Nothing. If I can get into my cycle of what I see as productive because I'm putting food on the table, I'm bringing a paycheck home and I'm making my bills, as long as I can get caught up in that life of just a cycle of nothing, right, I'll be okay with it. That's good. Just drowned out of the dreams that God's dreams for your life are much bigger than what you're giving yourself credit for right now. But yet we'll sit there because we don't have a belief system in ourselves that says, I know that the power of God lives on the inside of me. I've been subjected to so many things. Taskmasters have been sent to my life to embarrass me and humiliate me. I'm just going to take that baby that God keeps showing me and throw him in the river. Because even if I could get birth to it, I don't even know if I could nurture it to health. It ain't even worth my trying. I'll just throw it in the river. Now watch. This is what's so interesting to me. He says, take the male children and drown them and keep the women alive. See, the enemy's got so many tactics that are up going on in this verse here. He says, here's the thing I want to happen. He says, I want to take the part of you that has the ability to reproduce God's authority, and I want to drown it. But I don't want to kill off the part of you that can give birth. I'm going to give y'all a second to catch that. He says, I'll take the part of you that is the image of God and cause you to drown it out, that you don't reproduce the kingdom. Y'all got to follow me here. He says, I'll kill off the part that looks like God, but I'll keep the part that can still give birth. Yeah. Why? Because I still have this thing is about a kingdom war. We are trying to grow territory. We're trying to grow power and influence and authority. And the same way that God works is the same way the enemy works. He just works in an antagonizing fashion. If God's going to use people to create on the earth and bring power and influence to the earth, then the same way the enemy's going to do, he's going to take the people that God has put, strip the God out of them, but yet still use the reproductive system in their life to reproduce his kingdom. He says, so if I can take the Spirit of God out inside of them, I can put my seed into them, and the place in their life that can still give birth will give birth to my dreams rather than his.
God Almighty. God Almighty.
So we'll kill off the authority in their life. We'll kill off the seed that looks like God, and we'll keep alive the place that can still be reproductive. I'll get them locked into a place where they're still willing to do something. They just have to be commanded to do it. They don't believe enough in themselves to trust themselves and the things that God has put in them. They'll push that to the side, and they'll follow any command they're given.
Jesus. Jesus.
Even if that drives them to the monotony of their cycle every day. Y'all, man, I'm telling you. Now, here's the thing, is that while he's killing off the seed inside of you and keeping alive the birthing portion of you, he literally is eliminating the authority that God has put in you. God used man he said, I'm going to build man in my image. I'm going to shape him in my image. And if I'm going to get myself to earth, then we'll reproduce my image. We'll reproduce my image. God had the ability to take his hands and create out of himself. He was so powerful and so illustrious that he literally could take his faith and his potential, and he could build man out of the dust of the earth. But he said, listen, I'm going to make man in my image, but I can't make him just like me, or else he'll try to overtake me. And so I'm going to give man the power to have a seed, and I'm going to give woman as his partner, as his helpmate, the ability to produce a child, to give birth. And together they'll literally become me, that they'll reproduce my spirit and my presence in the kingdom. All right? But the man, the seed, the male represents that authority, and the enemy is trying to find a place that if I can ever eliminate the authority of their life, it's where I can take over. Guys, that's what the enemy was after when he was still in the heavens, was the authority of God.
That's right.
He wanted to look just like God.
That's right.
And God said, well, look, Jack, you can't have my authority. Bye, you're gone. And so then we get this picture of heaven on earth, and we get paradise, and we get Adam and Eve. Now here's what's interesting to me, is that God created Adam and Eve, gave them the power to have his authority, and gave them the ability to have purpose, and gave them the ability to procreate or create on earth and produce God's spirit. And the enemy literally began to work in their life, not to kill them, but to kill the God in them. If you remember correctly, the enemy didn't cast them out of the garden. God did. He just cast the God out of them. Are you following me? Yes. It was God that kicked them out of the garden to protect them. But he wasn't there to try to remove them from their place. He wasn't there to try to remove them from where God had put them. He wasn't trying to remove them from where God had placed them in. He really could care less where God had them at if he could just get the God out of them. So God, literally, the enemy knows that where you're at is a strategy by God. It literally is a strategy of the kingdom. He's not afraid of where you're at if he can just get what's in you out of you.
That's right.
And so he's trying to eliminate the authority that's inside of your life. Because what's inside of you has been brought to bring deliverance to those around you.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
What's inside of you is a deliverer. What's inside of you is a deliverer, and there are people around you waiting on that to come to life.
Yes.
To bring them out of the holes that they're in. See, there's got to be somebody that in the middle of being influenced by forced labor, and somebody being in the middle of oppression, there's still got to be somebody that's got faith in God. The whole nation may have just died and gone to nothing, but there's still got to be somebody. God is going to preserve somebody that still trusts him. We sit here and shout and get frustrated about our nation, frustrated about our government, frustrated about our leaders, our school system. Here's the thing. If God is living on the inside of you, our country still has hope. And God has sent you to be the one to make change, not to complain about it. That's what oppressed people do. But the people of authority begin to get to work and believe in the system of God that is put inside of them to bring deliverance to those around them. I'm preaching to you right now. Whether you like it or not, y'all ain't giving me no help, but I'm preaching to you. So then we have this woman named Jochebed. See, she was oppressed too. She was one of the Israelites that was in captivity. But her mind was still set on God. Her mind still in the middle of the frustration and the slavery around me, In the middle of the bondage that I've been subjected to, I'm still a free woman because of the presence of God.
Glory to God Almighty.
And God has given me something that I'm not willing to let die. God has given me something that if God thought enough of me to give it to me, I'm going to think enough of him to give birth to it. God's believed in me enough to deposit a seed inside of me. I'll go through whatever I got to go through to get that thing birthed. If God has given me the ability to reproduce him on earth, I'll do anything to make that happen. I don't care who I face, what I face. I don't care how many times I've been humiliated. There's nothing like my God. There's nothing like my God. I'll trust what God has put inside of me. And there's this woman that said, I still believe in the seed that God has planted in my life. My nation needs what's in me. Let me tell you something. That ain't arrogant. It ain't arrogant if you trust the God inside of you.
Amen.
Come on now. I ain't getting no hallelujahs about that. It's not arrogant if you trust that God has put something inside of you that everybody around you needs. The reality is that the seed that's in you and the gift that's in you is not for you. It's for everybody else around you. And so you need to give birth to what's inside of you because it's meant for the people that you come in contact with. God is trying to get that out of you, but you got to trust that. This woman conceived and bore a son, and then she saw that he was a beautiful child. And here's the thing, is it said she hid him 3 months. See, some of y'all know that there's something inside of it, but you tried to hide it for far too long. You've hid it. You've been ashamed, whether it be from the attacks, from fear, afraid of people around you, afraid of what people have said around you, afraid of what they may think about you. You've been afraid. So you hid what God's put in you. No, I know, God, you've been telling me that for a long time. I just don't know. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe people will believe it. So I'm just going to put it away. I'm going to hide it. And God's trying to get it out of it. I'm just going to put it away. No, I don't need to tell nobody about that because they won't believe me anyway. They'll think I'm crazy. I'm just going to put it away. God said, I've given you that seed for those people. Now I'm going to hide it for a little while. I'm going to wait till I believe enough in myself to make it happen.
That's it, yeah.
Wait, I'm going to wait till I get the right people around me to make it happen. Now I'm just going to hide it long enough until I get enough money in the bank that I can launch out and do it. And I'm going to hide it for a little while. And I know you're talking to me, God, but I just don't have what it takes right now. I don't know the Bible well enough right now. I can't do it. I don't even know if I could lead somebody to Christ because I just don't know the Bible the way I think I should. I need to go to Bible school for a little while and just get more mature and get built up. I'm just going to hide it. God says, no, I'm trying to birth it out of you. I'm trying to birth it out of you. And see, there's some of y'all that's tried to hide that thing for a while, but then there's also some of you that have begun to get to a place that thing is starting to bring a head and you can't hide it no more. You don't know what to do. You're scared right now because God's trying to bring it out of you and you rushing because now I can't hide it. I could hide this belly for a little while, but now I'm 9 months pregnant. I can't hide it no more. I can't cover it up with pillows and clothes. That thing, I can't hide it no more. I got to find something to do with it. I just can't hide it anymore until you come to a place that God is going to give birth to that thing. And what do I do now? What do I do? She said couldn't hide him anymore, so she took an ark from the bulrushes and daubed it with asphalt and pitch and put the child in it and laid it in the reeds by the river bank. Let me see if I can paint this for you here. The picture of a river is a couple of things. First of all, water in Scripture always represents life. God says, don't be afraid of what's ahead, even though that river may look chaotic. Even that river may look like you don't know how to navigate it. You see the waters that are rushing and it's kind of rolling over the rocks and it looks dangerous. I know you see that river and it looks, you're a little scared about it. You don't know who you can trust. You don't know how you're going to work it out, what you're going to do. But here's the thing is if you lay it in the river, I promise you there's life there.
Jesus.
And what you got to realize is if I've brought something inside of you that I intend to give birth to, I promise you that I have already prepared the path that it will roll down. You just have to have enough faith in yourself that you can give birth to something kingdom. God says, I know you see that thing and it's coming, and there's a river before you and you're afraid of the river. He said, but I've done something to the river that's pretty amazing that you really take for granted. is that I've laced this river with these things called banks. And so what may look chaotic to you is in order by me. And so what's flowing with my life and what looks distraught and what looks frustrating and what looks like you can't navigate it and you don't know which way to go and it looks destructive and it looks like your baby, even if you put it in a boat that can float, you still think it may drown. And God's like, just trust me to lay it in my life and I'll create order for the baby that's inside of you to get it where it needs to go. Y'all got to understand the strategy of God in this moment. Is that God had created the perfect place for her to take this child and rescue this child and carry it to a place that she did not have access to and that she could not navigate. But God had created this place of order to carry that child, that it would bring its greatest impact if she just had the ability to elevate her faith. Somebody got to raise their faith here this morning. I'm telling you, man. Some of y'all got to quit. I trust God. I don't know what else to do but trust God.
Yes.
Are you following me?
Yes. Yes.
No, I got faith. No, you ain't got faith. You got faith as long as you can see it and touch it.
You better preach. Come on.
What if God said lay it in a river?
Come on.
You don't even know how to swim. Lay it in a river. Laying it in a river is going to expose it to everything and everybody. It's going to expose it to the chaotic roars of life. But I've created the order of life. If you don't birth this thing into life, it will never get to its destination. I know you've been damaged by life, but life is literally where I work. You can't eliminate people and God do his work.
Hallelujah.
God said if you just give birth to that thing and literally lay it in life, if you'll just lay it to the place that I've built for it, I've created the order for it, that it will arrive at its destination, it will raise up and it will make the impact that it's been sent to make, because its impact is not your responsibility, it's just your job to have faith to give birth to it. And then she says, okay, I'm going to do this thing here where I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it right in the edge of the water. And I'm going to trust God. And God says, don't ever discount the fact that I've got every step ordered in your life. Don't ever discount the fact that if you'll listen to me, and if you won't listen to your taskmasters, and if you'll step up and have faith, and you'll rebuke the humiliation, and if you'll begin to have some faith, he said, I will literally strategize every connection and every moment in your life, and I will bring people into your life at the opportune time that you can lay your baby with.
Hallelujah.
It says, this daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river. It ain't no accident that God had her lay that child right where that queen came to bathe. See, God's got divine connections waiting on you. You just ain't trusted him enough to give birth to it. Let me tell you this. You pray for provision in your life. Now, I'm going to go and teach this later, but you can't have, first of all, you can't have provision without the vision. You can't pray for provision and you ain't doing God's work. No, I'm not just talking about a little bit of God's work. I'm talking about sold out to God's work. Because provision was created for the vision. Now, I know you ain't liking what I'm saying right now. I'm stepping on your toes and tearing you up. But the reality is that God said, I have given you everything you need to accomplish the child that I have put in you. But you have to do it my way.
Yes.
And if you'll do it my way, I have created everything that you need to make it successful. And it doesn't mean just money. I have put the right people in your path too that can open doors that no man can shut. So he brings this daughter of Pharaoh down to the river to bathe. It's just her time of day to bathe. But it's a monumental day in the kingdom. Don't ever discount the days of your life. God just give me a little nuggets all right now, just left and right. Don't ever discount what tomorrow may bring. I know I always talk about Monday because today's Sunday, but don't ever discount a Monday. Don't ever see, we get locked into this place that Monday's just a day of frustration, a day of dread. Tomorrow may be a kingdom day in your life. If you'll surrender today to the faith of the dream that God has put inside of you, he may lock you up tomorrow with somebody that he's been waiting to put you with that can make everything of your life come to pass if you'll just have the mind to see it and the faith to believe it.
Hallelujah.
Pharaoh's daughter come to bathe at the right time. It's not by accident that God said, I'm going to create a divine connection in the Nile River.
That's right.
It ain't got to happen in the king's palace. It can happen in a place of dirty, muddy water.
Hallelujah.
I'll do things in ways you never thought I could do them before.
Hallelujah.
You want keys to the palace, and I'm just trying to get you to a riverbed. Why? Because there's life in the riverbed. There's my order in the riverbed. There's my divine connection in the riverbed. There's my provision in the riverbed. If I can just get you to a place of the riverbed, it will change everything for you.
Yes.
Everything. Now watch, I'm about to mess you up right here. See, those taskmasters look the same as the daughter of Pharaoh. The people that she had been subjected to in her life that had attempted to create oppression in her would have to be the people that she trusted to see her dream live. See, you cursing the people of your past, and it's people that's only going to bring your future forward. And you have shut down life because you no longer trust people. You follow me? See, because those people look just like the people that you just left. And I don't know if I can trust this one because this one tried to humiliate me. Let me get churchy on you for a minute. I don't know if I can trust this pastor or this leader because the last one hurt me. I can't tell you how much I done heard that. Not knowing that the one standing before you may literally lead you to the place of destiny. I don't trust this boss because the last one abused me. I don't trust this father because the last one molested me. The problem is that God's going to use people to bring your baby to pass. And at some point, you got to quit looking at the people around you and start looking at the God in you. Because if God has brought you to a place that he has fertilized the seed of your life and has literally brought it to a place of germination that it's ready to give birth, I promise you he has created the people that can bring that thing to where it needs to be. She said, I'm going to lay my baby right here. Everybody's trying to kill it. Everybody's trying to kill. Here's the thing is, even in the middle of this thing, not only was she wrestling in a place in her mind that I'm about to lay my child, my newborn child, in a basket in the middle of a river, but there's still people around it trying to kill it too. You feel me? Not only is she worried that the river might drown it, but the people around it that may see it are trying to kill it too.
Hallelujah.
In the middle of what God is trying to birth out of you, there will still be a strategy to kill the purpose that's in you, but you cannot stop because people are trying to kill you. You must trust who God is placing in your path.
Preach that. Hallelujah.
Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside, and when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. Now watch. And she opened it, saw the child, and behold, the baby wept, and she had compassion. It's not by accident that this woman that was a part of the people that were oppressing God's people all of a sudden had a massive, overwhelming sense of compassion come over her that she literally wanted to love what they had abused. Had compassion come over her and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. I know that my daddy says kill them all. But I can't explain what's going on inside of me right now. That I can't lay my hand on this child to kill it. If I wanted to drown it, I couldn't drown it. There's something going on inside of me that instead of killing it, I want to hold it. I'm telling you what, I hope y'all chewing this up because I'm preaching better than you hollering. And then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women that she may nurse the child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. So that the maiden went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, hey, take this child, nurse him, and I'm going to give you your wages. I'm going to come back to that. And so the woman took the child and nursed him, and the child grew up, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. You may have frustration for Anderson, And you're put inside of it for the very reason you have frustration of it.
That's it.
That the very thing you hate about your environment is exactly why God has sent you to it. That what you can't stand about your city and about your county and about the people around you and about your job, what frustrates you most about them is the reason that God has brought you into it, because you can't lead it out. You can't deliver it from afar. You have to deliver it from the inside out. God delivers you from the inside out. He said, I don't look on the outside of a man. I look on the inside of a man. And if I'm going to deliver him, I'm going to work on the inside of him. So I can't take my son and just get him out here. I got to get my spirit inside of him so that I can change them and deliver them from the inside out. He won't take you to change people standing away from him. He'll throw you right in the middle of them. And in order for you to deliver those people, you have to get on the inside. But God says, here's the thing. He says, in order for you to get the keys to the place that I'm trying to give you access to, you're going to have to hand this baby over to me, because I'm going to have to give it to somebody that's already there. See, this old Hebrew woman didn't have the ability to walk up in the king's palace and just knock on the door and say, hey, let me inside. I'm going to hang out for a while. Here in a few years, about 40 years, my son's going to deliver my people out of here. No. They'd have looked at her and rejected her and laughed at her, killed her on the spot, thrown her away, taken the baby and killed it too. God says you got to trust somebody that already has the keys to the kingdom. You got to trust somebody that can elevate you to the place that you're trying to go. Y'all, you follow me right now? Yeah. God says it's just your job to give birth. You lay it in the river and let me take care of the rest. I'll bring life to it. I'll bring order to it. And I'll connect it with the people that have far greater access and influence than you ever thought you'd have. But when you're willing to trust people that have an advancement and have access to the places that you're trying to get to in your life, I'll also elevate you to that level, and then I'll hand your child back over to you for you to nurture and care for. You follow me right now? She gives it away and says, here, God, it's all on you. You take it and give life. And God says, watch. I'm about to show you how I work. I'm going to hand this child over to the one that's already living on the inside of what I'm trying to deliver. And then I'm going to strategically take you and give you access to be connected to him. And so I'm no longer going to leave you in the house that you live in, but I'm not just going to elevate your child to the palace. I'm going to bring you with it. No. Look, this thing goes even further. It says, not only am I going to bring you to the palace, but I'll even bless you for taking care of your own child. She says, here, bring that woman here and let them nurse, and then I'll give you your wages for raising it up. Y'all ain't following me right now. God says if you're willing to take your child and give birth and lay it literally in the path that I have established for it, I'll connect it with people. And if you will just trust me to release that thing into my hands, I'll give that thing back to you and allow you the ability to raise it up and be blessed because you're attached to it. Take this child away, nurse him, and I'm going to give you the wages. I'm going to pay you for your own child. I'm going to take the enemy's money and bless the righteous with it.
You have been listening to the Rejuvenate Church broadcast. If you shared in today's service with us, visit us at www.rejuvenatechurch.com and send us a message. We would love to hear from you. Rejuvenate Church invites you to be our guest if you're in the upstate of South Carolina. We are located in Anderson, South Carolina, inside the Anderson Mall across from Books A Million. Our service times are Sundays at 10:45 a.m. and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. For up-to-date information, visit our website or connect with us on social media. We are found on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Pastor Jason Wilson and Rejuvenate Church desire to bridge the gap that divides race, age, and economic status. We are transforming culture by engaging and shaping men and women through relationships and positive kingdom influences. Thank you for listening. We look forward to the opportunity to share with you again at Rejuvenate Church.